Hello, hi Tide Imbibe. We have another beer, another one from Tatamagouche Brewing, and this is a version of their one of their beers that they do that I was not super fond of. One of the rare ones where I was like, not for me. It was just kind of bland. It was kind of wasn't quite doing much, and that was their Skiff Grisette. Here's a different version of it, and I think this is released under their like, hey, we're celebrating 10 years kind of thing. So they might have done this before. I don't know. But this is their Taka Grisette at 4.6% alcohol by volume. Grisette, of course, is sort of like if you believe the history, it's a little dubious whether history is true or not, but the idea of basically the farmhouse ale, but for French mining camps, for French miners. And grisette is a word that refers to like working class women back in the day in France who would be like serving the miners beer, basically. I think that's kind of the general consensus. It's basically like a farmhouse ale. Usually the biggest difference is there's like malted wheat introduced to it. This one has water, malt, hops, yeast, oats, spelt, and apricots in it, and we'll get to that here in a sec. We're going to go to the webpage and take a close look at what it has to say about this. So, present. So here we go. The Grisette, aged on apricots. Whoops. That was brilliant. All right. So Taka, and by the way, I don't know what Taka refers to here. I don't know what the word, because it's a word that has a lot of different meanings in different cultures. Like it's a Bangladesh unit of currency. In Japan, it means like big and tall, and there's all kinds of different ways Taka is used depending on the culture. So I don't know 100% what it's referring to here. Maybe it's something very obvious that's just I'm missing, but they don't really say here in the description either. So it's introducing Taka. So not a beer they've done before. This is just, hey, in celebration of 10 years, we're doing something different. Crisp Belgian Grisette, aged for 6 months on apricots after spending a year in neutral oak barrels. So barrel aged, but not in barrels that had anything in them to start with, or maybe they just been, I don't know. I assume neutral oak barrels means that they were like not used for anything else. They were just used specifically for this. We don't need tasting notes, but apparently this is supposed to be, much more complex and interesting than Grisette typically is. And at 4.6%, definitely higher in alcohol than Grisette typically is. By like almost like a full percent, basically. Usually you don't see them any higher than like 3.5, something like that. Again, sort of traditional farmhouse style kind of a beer, but as the story goes, for like French, Flemish miners, that sort of thing. So pour it and we'll see what we think. The spelt has me worried. Usually that gives like a really dry, chalky thing, and that was kind of one of the issues I had with their Skiff Grisette. Don't like that in beer at all. I remember like the first like big wave of gluten-free beers. They'd have to use alternate grains, right? And spelt was like a big one that was used in a lot of them. Probably still is, honestly, but like that first wave of like gluten-free beers where they were, starting to really kind of catch on and be a thing in the marketplace. So many of them had spelt in it and were just like, I was drinking chalk. Not a fan. Anyway, so it looks a brilliant Wow, it looks way better on the camera. Brilliant orange on camera. It's more of a golden straw color in actuality. So not much of a head going on here. We'll go right to the aroma. Oh, all apricot. Holy shit. Hmm. It's really like just orchard fruit forward. Like just those kind of green orchard fruits. Like, I mean, it's got the apricot there, but it feels like I'm getting a little bit of pear, maybe some apple. There's some grassiness in here. I'm getting a little bit of the mustiness from the wheat and the spelt. Mm. Smells like kind of white wineish, really. The apricot's there, but it's not necessarily just distinctly just apricot. It's got other things coming into it here. I'm assuming that's partly the barrel. Like I think I'm getting kind of a woodiness out of this that might be like interfering a little bit with the apricot aroma. I don't mean interfering in like a negative way. I just mean like asserting itself in there and making sure that because I've had apricot beers before, and usually they're just all apricot. Like it's just the dominant note. In this case, apricot is sharing with like that sort of pear orchard fruit kind of thing, and a little bit of woodiness, a little bit of dryness, mustiness from I assume the wheat and the spelt as well in there. Did they say there were oats in this as well? Oats, yeah, oats in this too. And yet it's pretty clear too. They didn't it didn't get super hazy with all those things in. I assume they must have filtered this fairly well, I guess. Because usually when you see like oats, wheat, spelt, oh, it's going to be a haze bomb. We're riding the haze train, but no. So cheers. We'll go to the taste. Hmm. So it actually tastes a lot similar to the Skiff Grisette. Um, Although I found the Skit Grisette like underwhelming. It was like very so basic and so kind of plain. There was a unique note in it, a kind of cheese kind of note to it, both in the aroma and the flavor. I'm getting that kind of cheese thing again in the actual taste, and that's pleasant. I like that. But like it's kind of like aged cheddar, kind of that kind of flavor you'll get. Um, but on top of that is the apricot coming out, and it's mixing very well. This actually has some flavor, more interesting complexity in the flavor than the just their basic grisette that they had, the skiff. Mm. The apricot's there, and it's not boiling over, like it's not taking over the drink like an apricot beer tends to do. It's in the background there, um, mostly in the finish. Honestly, it's more that kind of cheesy taste. I don't know what that comes from, and I'm getting a little bit of mustiness from sort of the wheat and the spelt, but it's not chalky. In this case, it's very good. The mouthfeel is fine. It's fairly light and refreshing. There's a tartness to this. Which I think a lot of that kind of cheesy taste comes from, honestly. Like it feels like it comes directly out of that tartness somehow. I don't know how that would work if I'm correct about that or not. I can only tell you what I taste. Maybe someone who's more familiar with this style and maybe some of the inner workings of how this works would be able to, you know, uh, back me up on this or correct me, one or the other. This is really good. The tartness is just right. That cheesy quality to it is nice and inoffensive, and then just the apricot in the background, a little bit of a ghost of it almost at times. Sometimes it asserts itself a little bit more. It works. It's got a good balance. Let's see what they say on the actual page. I'm just going to read the notes here and see if what my tasting fits what they're saying here. So yeah, oak barrels. I'm not really getting the kind of woodiness I was kind of getting in the maybe in the nose from the barrels. The barrels don't seem like much of a presence here, at least not that I can detect. So they said start with a burst of apricot. I don't know about that. Finishes clean and light. Mixed fermentation yeast culture adds deep layers of plums and white grape. White grape, okay. I was saying like white orchard fruit kind of stuff. White grape that kind of fits into that. While the oak barrel gives a subtle vanilla, definitely not getting vanilla, but there are tart fruit flavors. Okay, I'm getting some of that. Mm. Don't know if I'm getting plum. Um, Maybe the flavors are all kind of like mixed together so well. That cheesiness I'm talking about almost bleeds over into what people would call horse blanket back in the day. Maybe they still call it that when like trying to describe specific kind of like notes for like farmhouse ales and Belgian style ales that are like naturally fermented and the like, wild yeast. This is good and drinkable though. It's very nice. Um, this is what the skiff should have been. Now, do I think all the stuff they did to it? Do I think it pays off? Like all the work they put into it, does it really pay off with the flavor and stuff? Maybe not. I mean, it's a simple beer. It tastes good. I don't know if it tastes super special, like aged on apricots for 6 months, put in a barrel for a year, or whatever they said. But let's read that. 6 months on apricots after spending a year in neutral oak barrels. Yeah, so a year and 6 months to get to this, maybe not. Um, but it's good. And who am I to tell Tatamagouche how to make their beers and what to do? I'm not going to try. If they're happy with it, I'm happy with it. And it's not like they were charging like $10 for a small can or something. So it's like, well, who the fuck cares, really? Um, it's a good tasting beer. As a grisette, I definitely like it better than their skiff. I'd probably give it a 8 for style. It feels like they're hitting on something here, and there's definitely room for improvement, but they're much more closer to what I feel like what the style is supposed to represent at this point. And my personal preference, I could see myself drinking this. 7.5. I like it. Like I said, it would make a very good food beer. Like this would be a really good like lighter alcohol beer to have with food. Just the tartness and the other flavors like that cheesy horse blanket ish thing that's going on feels like it would just work really well with like a nice hearty meal. And we got Paul in the chat here saying, "Cheers, brother! PA Brew News. Cheers, sir. Hope you're doing good." So yeah, 8 for style and 7.5 for my own personal preference. The Taka Grisette from Tatamagouche Brewing. Pretty good stuff. You can pick it up on their website, and it's decent. Decent little low alcohol farmhousey thing. If you like that stuff, you'll probably like this. So I'm going to kick out of here now for this one. I got one more to do tonight. I'll probably do that in about 10, 15 minutes at the most. Hashtag it horse blanket. It's weird. Like we all laughed about like using that term back in the day. You know, it's like because people would scoff, like, "What's horse blanket supposed to taste like?" But it's kind of stuck. It turned out to be a pretty good descriptor, I think. Honestly, it's immediately when I get like this, like wild yeast, sometimes tart, sometimes just like musty, weird, cheesy kind of taste from a Belgian ale. It's like horse blanket, barnyard, you know. Sometimes it just works. That's why, you know, that's why you use descriptors like that, because you can get into like you can get into a feeling, you can get into a mood, you can get into a description that goes beyond just the printed word, and sometimes tap into a person's brain and make them go like, yeah, I think I kind of get what they're saying there. Or it's just bullshit. Who knows? Maybe it's just bullshit too. But either way, like I said, I'll be back in about 10, 15 minutes with another beer. And cheers. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.